Awesome. All right, so welcome everyone to the Verify and Release UX bi-weekly meeting. We are with a smaller group of people today. Dimitri is not joining due to the time zones, I guess, and Lori is busy wrapping up some other stuff. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I see that we have a couple of items on the agenda added, and feel free to add some more while we are talking. But yeah, let me go one by one then. So we don't have anything in the items for the Your Stage group topics. Let me maybe ask here or join, maybe somebody else has anything to add. Anything exciting happening in the stage groups? Anything you want to share? Or maybe any challenges?
Wow, there's so much stuff going on. So we have a few things that we have like juggling around. The first one I think is we finished research for deploying to AWS, and a bunch of stuff came up there, and some really interesting ones. Like it turns out that people are not necessarily using environment variables in order to store their AWS variables, and they're using different types of methods. So one thing that's really interesting is what kind of integration we can do with additional, I don't know if to call secret managers, but like AWS has their own like secret store and things like that. So that's something I also talked about with Jackie. That's super interesting to integrate, because I know there's a lot of work now with Vault, and it's not necessarily the only path. So that's something interesting. Another really interesting thing in the AWS research that we did was we found out that a lot of people that are in charge of deploying to AWS are DevOps engineers that have, I'm going to call it internal customers, that they create the deployments for them. So for example, it may be an ops team, it may be developers, but people that don't know AWS, and they're the back office. And what they do is they use different types of tools like Jenkins or CloudFormation in AWS to create templates that they give the other users to just enter, like, here's the size of the instance that I want, here's the database that I want to connect to it, and I don't know, different kind of parameters. And I thought it would be really neat to do that in GitLab, which is like a huge project and really interesting. So probably gonna do some solution validation with Dimitri on that at some point. So that's really, really interesting. We have some additional interesting things that we're working on now. So one of the things that we want to do is, there was a big engineering research effort around load balancing. So today we support advanced deployments, canary, and incremental rollout for Kubernetes only. And we don't support any other like customable advanced deployment. It's either what we have in Auto DevOps or you're done. That's what you have to do. So we figured out we needed to develop a load balancer, and we're going to start with the nginx one. So we are starting with Kubernetes first, but I don't know if it's going to stay like that forever. But there's a bunch of things that we need to have the user be able to configure in terms of like weights. So for blue and green deployments, we need to introduce primary deployment and a secondary deployment, and be able to switch between them, and be able to switch between them with weights. So I'm not really sure, and this is a conversation I have with Dimitri, is where we're going to place these things to configure, because I have no idea. There's like different options, or maybe just rethinking everything. So we have like a lot of things to talk about. And this also has a lot of work to do with the deploy boards, because if you're switching from blue to green, you pretty much want to know if you're on primary or on secondary in your deployment. So there's a lot of visualization that we need to do here, and a lot of work anticipated. And a third thing that we're working on that's really exciting is post-deployment monitoring, which we're now in the solution validation stage. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background to understand what we're talking about. So the idea is, since the monitor team is already collecting a bunch of metrics after deployment, which may be HTTP error rate or CPU usage or memory usage. And we already have some kind of way to figure out that there's a threshold that we don't want to cross. And what happens today is there's an incident response connected to it. So if a threshold is met, automatically it generates an issue and emails the appropriate developer. And what we want to do is take this mechanism and bring it to the pipeline. So if there's a kind of error that's met, we want to either roll back or stop the deployment. And also this is a lot of changes to the deploy board, so it kind of connects to it. So, you know, if you're deploying something and there's a bunch of errors, you probably want to stop the deployment and not continue with it. So that's the thinking around it. And we have a lot of research now to see what metrics are interesting for people. Do people really want to roll back, or maybe they just want to stop, or maybe they just want an indication? We're not exactly sure. So that's what we're doing now. How was that, Nadia?
Loved it. Freaking informative. Let me close my mouth a little bit and ask everyone on the call, do we see any dependencies, any questions? Because it sounds like a lot of touch points with the other stage groups.
I was just curious about the deploy boards. For some reason, this is actually not a question really, but I thought deploy boards was something more on your face, but I remember now that it's just in the environments view, yeah. Right? Yeah. Did you have any discussions on it in making that, I don't know, expanding the way that the users are consuming that information about the clusters and everything on that specific area? Because I remember we had a conversation ages ago about deployment boards.
So yes, and this is where it spans. So Dove's team in Monitor is doing a bunch of work around UX around the deploy boards. So I don't really want to touch anything and step on their toes. But I've had a lot of conversations with him about it. And he was like, here is my legend. Don't touch it. Don't move from it. Here's what you need to do.
Okay. Makes sense. And, I think that was it for me. Let me reread the notes from Nadia because it was a lot of information.
It sounds exciting. I'm happy to see that everything is moving forward. So it sounds like you know, we are getting in some of the even solution stages. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure Dimitri is getting on board, so he's supporting there. Do you feel like you need any help from us? Yeah, any dependencies on the other stages that you could identify yourself?
So at the moment, like some touch points that I mentioned was secrets. That seems like an interesting point to see how we can connect the other release stage with a deployment to AWS. That's something really interesting. And something that I already pinged Jackie on was that, for example, post-deployment, I think we need to add it to the environment dashboards. So if there's an error showing up in some kind of environment, I think it should show up in the dashboard itself. And granted, I only know of this existence because I started it, but I don't know like how that collaboration works with other stages.
Yeah, this with us. I think for the environments dashboard, that's a very good point. As far as I know, we'll be focusing on improving the pagination of the environments dashboards for now. Mm-hmm. And then the other part, what was it? My God, it's something else related to environment. But, oh yeah, and it's showing the environments and the deployments from different projects, but that they have the same name, right? Because right now you only see one, but if you name something the same in different projects, you want it to be in the environments dashboard. So I think that those are the two low-hanging fruits for us. And I just haven't discussed anything yet other than that with Jackie. What is good?
So really simple. I mean, if you have a threshold that's crossed, just color it red on the dashboard. Super simple. Like we don't have to go crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with this dashboard, it's we know that it's going to change, and we want to update it at some point. Because we're getting a lot of, from as far as I know from Jackie's interviews, that people are not making real use of that dashboard, that we could improve the way we are displaying the data, that we are relating all these environments. So for sure, MVC, go for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and of course we always have the cross stage thing big. So or it ping me if we need to organize something around that to brainstorm all together. Yeah, because I think we have next one coming up. I think next week or something like that, or in 2 weeks. So it's always a possibility for us to brainstorm together. Okay. Anyone else wants to add something to the stage group discussion?
I'm coming back from a 5-day weekend, so I don't have anything outstanding.
Oh,
Well, how was the holiday yesterday, Nadia and Hayana?
It was nice. Watch the TV, the King's speech, but it was very quiet just in general because of the whole Corona thing. But I'm not sure about Nadia, but I took an extra day off, so I've been off since Thursday last week. I don't know.
I took Thursday last week because Family Day was a Friday. So
Oh, yeah.
I had Wednesday was Independence Day here, super boring because it was quarantine, like lockdown. So we had Independence Day, and then I had Thursday Family Friends Day, and then I had Friday off and Saturday off. So it was a nice weekend for me too.
That's nice.
amazing.
Not
I have to be a party pooper here. I feel like, I don't know, I'm not enjoying holidays right now. Probably it's connected to all of the situation and also the fact that we are living with parents right now. But yeah, Hayana, we had this discussion with you earlier, and like, I feel like right now I need find a way to make sure that I can log off, because like yesterday I was actually like partially working, which is horrible, which I shouldn't have done. But, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, kind of like you don't feel like you have anything else to do in this situation. So actually today I was looking like, okay, I need to find a hotel where I could just like even go,
nice.
give myself a break, close to the sea. We have a North Sea in the Netherlands, which is pretty gloomy and gray, but hey, it's a sea at the end of the day. So I'm thinking like I need to plan an escape from all of this situation.
Yeah, it
Nadia,
doesn't
the
feel
minute
yeah.
you should come see the beaches in Tel Aviv.
I wish I could travel. Seriously, Orit, I'm like trying. I'm checking that the travel, like this allowance for international
Like
travels.
here, they're very strict. I don't think before July you'll be able to. But I'm just saying, like, this is our weather plan for this week. So I
My
don't know if you
God.
can see.
So
It's
it's
all sun between 23 to 28 degrees. Today I spent the whole day outside working. Like I just sat in the garden and worked.
I'm looking
yeah,
forward to those warm days here because it's sunny, but the wind is so cold outside that I cannot sit on my balcony. So I cannot wait for summer, the quarantine summer to start.
indeed.
I actually took my kids today, first time to the city because I wanted to buy the masks and they were being very difficult. So I was like, just you go and choose whatever you want. And like I bought them slushes and I bought them donuts and they haven't been out of the house for 2 months. So this has been like, it was such a treat for them.
Adventure.
Yeah, buying mask. Yeah, what else fun can we do these days?
Hey Nadia, but did you see the news that they're gonna, from the 11th, from next Monday, they're gonna start reopening things here? They're gonna, the hairdressers, restaurants, bars, yeah, they're gonna make an announcement today. I think it was today at 5 or is it 6, but there's the prime minister is announcing.
Did you
But it
see
will
what
be
they're doing in
from
Amsterdam, in the restaurants in Amsterdam?
yeah. So there will be, of course, a limit number of people that can go out, but
No, they did something really cool in Amsterdam. They built these mini greenhouses for each table so that you don't have to sit together with people. It's really cool. I'll send you the article.
Oh, I haven't
Oh,
seen that. And
I saw that, but it looks super cool. But I was like, does it really make? I mean, like, do you really need that? It sounded more like, oh, it's gonna be super cool to be inside this thing, but I don't think it's gonna protect anyone.
I thought it was a genius idea.
Yeah, it's like very marketing type of thing,
yeah,
but it
have
looks super cool.
I haven't even heard the news, Hayana, yet. I was actually
Yeah.
thought they're gonna open it up since June 1st. This is the first thing,
No.
last
they're
thing.
gonna start them.
Oh, I apologize for the Hebrew. Just look at the picture.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, that's some good news. Thanks, Hayana. Yeah, Orit, we have that. Okay. I actually probably even know where is it exactly. Oh, that's nice. Anyway, let's come
Here.
back to the discussion because Hayana, I'm pretty excited about the next question you have posted here. But my initial question was I wanted to talk to you folks about the UX depth issues and like how are you handling them in your stage groups. I know that we earlier had a discussion with Hayana already. I was curious to hear, like maybe also Reed, you can give us perspective on the progressive delivery instead of Dimitri. Yeah, so anyone has a process around the UX step right now? And there is also a question from Hayana about the difference of the UX step and UX bug.
Is that the question for me, or does Hayana want a voiceover?
I can just voice over my notes in the documents. Yeah, so Jackie and I, we've been talking about the UX step for a while now. In 13.1, we have like an open milestone. And yeah, I assigned to myself some UX step issues. And we had a conversation today that we're going to focus on UX steps that revolve around front end only, because there is only so much complexity that you can tackle like easily with those issues. And the way we're doing this is that I'm going over the backlog. The backlog per se of UX that we have for release management, it's very small, I think 6 items, but you know that there are bugs that should be UX debt. So the process that we agreed around this is that I'm going to go over the DevOps release items that are both UX debt and bugs that have front end and see which ones are UX debt. And then from there, we're just going to decide what makes sense to schedule based on the features that we've been shipping recently, and also, of course, the size of those items. But that's pretty much it. We haven't really focused on UX debt a lot in the past, and yeah, we're just reading them as bugs. But we want to make a differentiation because they're just debt is different. That's about it.
Now that Dimitri's joined, there's more focus on UX debt than there was before. I wouldn't say we have a process yet. We have a beginning of a process. So the first thing is that he actually looked into it. So that's already a good step. And we have planning issues. I know that you also have planning issues, Hayana. And for the next milestone, he suggested some UX debt issues that we should include in the milestone. There's 2 problems with what he suggested, not going into details, but all the items that he suggested have not been weighted yet. So I think we need to push it by at least 1 milestone just because it wasn't the needs to wait issue. So we need to make sure that it gets weighted before it gets into a milestone. And the second thing is we're down a front-end engineer because Sarah moved to verify. So there's only 1 front-end engineer in the team, and I don't know how much capacity just 1 person has. I know that Nicole said that we are backfilling, but then Jackie told me a rumor that we're not, so I'm not really sure where that's standing.
I see. Well, it's great. I'm happy to hear that you're also starting to look into that. I see that some people similar to Hannah and Jackie are like saying we're gonna look into one, or we're gonna try to commit to one UX that issue or whatever process around that, to make sure that we are constantly coming back. I like the fact I've seen that there is a UX step section added to the planning issue, so that's thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
Nehon, did you want to share something?
Well, that's a super interesting question because so I have 2 teams, right? I have testing and I have runner. And I feel that in runner, anything that it's UX is UX that even if it doesn't have the label, I feel that it's that at you know, in some way or another.
But what do you mean? Why is that everything that's related to UX is UX?
Because like most of the things that we're doing we're paying the debt of not having like a pretty deep a pretty well-rounded process when it comes to installing the runners or managing the runners, or it never feels that we're kind of like, at least until this point, it almost feels that we're just catching up to make that experience minimal, just to keep it in maturity words. It's kind of interesting because runner if you want to classify it as a category, it's very mature. The UX part feels that it's always catching up to and there's UX, there's like there's already a process to install a runner, there's already a process to manage a runner, but it always feels that there's a lot of legacy going on there, and like many of the issues that you see right now, it's like improve these, change this button, make this more clear. Even the ones that are features are just like catching up to things that are not necessarily planned features. They are just more like, oh, we need to make this because it's missing, which automatically in my mind makes it UX depth. It's almost like missing features that they were not planned initially. I know that that might not be technically correct, assuming that just because it's catching up, it's UX depth. But yeah, in testing is different. In testing, I think like we are in a different situation where like there's actually UX depth issues, like for instance, like improving the MR widgets. That's definitely UX depth, and we look at those. But quite honestly, like I should look more at those, and I should probably talk with James about committing to fix one of those per release if possible. I also fix a lot of those myself sometimes, so we like, even for runner, like I have been trying to fix like one per release myself. So like, for instance, when you go to settings, to the settings in runner, and there's usually like a lot of poorly designed things there. So I try to improve one thing per release on that. And I can do those, like those are like within the realm of my technical abilities. So I have been doing that. But yeah, it's interesting. That's why I said like I find the question interesting, because like it's almost like if you ask me what's UX depth, for me it goes beyond the label itself. I know there's many things that are not tagged with the label that are definitely depth, things that like were poorly thought before, they didn't have a UX, or they didn't have a good product manager who was thinking about the UX, or they didn't have a product manager, basically. I mean, like many of these things were created very early when GitLab was starting, like runner as a concept has been always something part of the CI/CD, but the management not necessarily, right? So I feel many things were like, just put this together and then we will figure out later, That's how it feels to me.
I think that's the biggest difference, like between what we consider UX depth and maybe this UX, what do they call? UX bug, right? Because for example, UX depth should be something that was generated by the engineering depth, or they didn't meet design guidelines, or we decided to leave something out of scope. I think that's the biggest difference, that something can be a follow-up feature because we need to improve the workflow here, or we need to polish the UI, but that was not part of the scope. I think that's the biggest difference. And it's awesome to hear also that you're tackling them on the fly, because that's one of the difficulties right now in my team, at least, is that dApp is generated during the merge request phase. And because I cannot be, I'm not like super conscious all the time of the changes, the micro changes that they make in the scope that influence the UX or the UI, I have to keep following up and saying like, okay, does this generate depth? Yes or no? Open an issue, this and that. So I think it makes a lot of sense what you say, as in you tackle things on the fly and you know ahead that depth is being generated, but the depth is not yet. It's not yet from the engineering phase. It's just UX features,
right?
Like they're nice to have, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think the way that I like to see it is that anything that wasn't validated by a UXer during the existence of GitLab, for me, it qualifies almost as UX dev, because usually those are the features that are just like, this doesn't make sense at all, you know? And you can tell that it was just like an engineer who said like, just put a button there, you know? Like it's, I mean, like that's one of the exciting things about working for GitLab, right? Like we're growing, we're fixing these things as we go. Like it's not that we're like 100% mature in all these areas. So like as I still find a lot of those areas where I see things which is like, yeah, there was no UX thought on this at all. Just an engineer put a button, like a flow
Yeah.
here, and that's it, you know?
But then that's it. If that's the case, then it's not UX debt, right? Because there was no UX standard. That's just a bug or a cleanup or whatever. UI, it's a UI polish. So that's why I'm a bit confused about also all this, because we keep creating all these labels to identify specific issues.
Yeah, I feel what you're
So
saying.
yeah, and then to me, I just started a thread in this in the UX channel. There's already some replies. My opinion, I think it should be bug and then it's UX bug. Then you have two labels, because we keep having this having to align about what things are specifically, unless we want to track like what we do for UX depth in this case. But I think if you can burn those things on the fly and identify that depth is being generated, you know, ahead of time, that's pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's an interesting point to start tracking that, and I think UX bug and the bug definitely have a right to exist separately. I haven't seen the thread yet, but it's interesting what people would say there. Um, and like I think Hayata, you mentioned that. Wait, we don't really have the UX depth description in the handbook, right?
no, that's the discussion I'm having now in the Slack channel, that people are explaining what it is.
Okay.
But I'm like, okay, but
I'm 100% like almost 100% sure that the reason why it exists because there's tech debt, and then someone said like, you know, there's also UX debt, you know, someone said it, and then likely Seed, you know, because I have heard Seed saying that a lot. He talks about UX debt as well. So I think it's just like because it makes sense to have symmetry. Like you don't only have tech debt, you know, which is like the one that it's hidden in the code and it's not visible to the user. There's also depth in the UIs and like the whole like user experience flows and whatnot. It's like, I don't know, that's my take. It's just like a symmetry thing.
Okay, well, maybe we can improve the documentation and handbook around these topics coming out of the discussion that is happening currently on Slack. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for sharing. I just wanted to see if we are giving UX dev or UX bugs a good portion of attention, and it seems like we are getting there. So Juan, it seems like testing. Well, I'm not talking about Runner, but it seems like testing is not having that included into the planning. Maybe this is something for you to suggest to James as well to start looking into that separately, because I see more and more PMs are doing that today, and this would
Sure.
help us to limit to reduce the amount of those issues as well. Cool. Okay, I think we are ready to move on then. So I wanted to move this. I know we have an issue open by me actually about documenting DRIs for the product areas, and I know that this is the topic that we have been discussing in one of the previous meetings of this type. I wanted to get a bit of your attention and advice here in order for myself and us to move forward with that. So the background on this topic was that we wanted to be to find the ways to be more aligned with the work that's happening in other stage groups to make sure that we are not overriding each other's work, that we are more aligned about the decisions or solutions that we are working on. And some of the outcomes that we have talked about, the proposal was to start documenting the DRIs for the features. And we kind of like concluded that probably a nice place for that would be in the product stages handbook page. And thanks everyone for dropping the ideas there. And basically a couple of questions that I had is in the issue we started like putting a lot of really detailed features, and I was thinking, aren't we going there into too many details with like so many little features? Aren't the DRIs going to be the same there? Kind of like basically I'm searching for your input on how do we better document that in the product stages handbook page. Does anyone?
Can we start with the merge request so we have an idea of like what could be the initial steps? Because in my head, it's like this should be, for example, a workflow, right? But it's difficult to kind of give an opinion on that, how that should be documented if it's not on the page. So do you think that that's a possibility so that we work on the fly?
Yeah, so your proposal is to basically give it a start with MR and add maybe those already features that we have outlined there. We didn't assign, I think that's a good idea. Yes, sure, I will do that. So we listed the features, but we didn't assign the DRIs to them. Could you point me to the direction? What's the best way, do you think, for me to finding that DRIs? Is contacting the closest people I know, or anyone has a better idea how to do that?
I use the features page because it has exactly the name of the features and screenshots like in the stage groups. So I think that's let me add it here, both the chat and also here. Yeah, so this is where I look. That's the only place I can actually relate things. So I'd say that's a good place to start. Because you can see, for example, if you click on release, you get continuous delivery, built-in CI/CD, and then it's the pipelines view. It's very easy to find information.
Great.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
then yeah, nothing. Go ahead.
I think this is this really much aligns with my thinking, and I kind of like, yeah, I don't know why I didn't start an MR yet. I think that's definitely a better way to give this another go, because I felt like we are a bit stuck there, and but this is a great way to push this forward. Any other thoughts on this? Nope. Awesome. Okay, Ayana, you put some comments there.
Yeah, today I had a call with Camelia. So Camelia, she's from Secure Stage, and she wanted to get some help about this feature she's working on. It's called like on-demand security scan. So it's kind of like a security pipeline that you run specifically, yeah, to check your security, to check the tests and everything. And she had a lot of questions about pipelines and how they work, how do people use the pipeline view, why they go there. And I could answer a bunch of her questions, but I think what she's working on spans CD much more. So I added here those 2 links that she sent me and also the main questions that she had during the call. And my suggestion is that Dimitri and Juan reach out to her as well, because there's much more CI work involved. So for this specific issue is that, as I mentioned, you go to a specific page in the security section of your project, and you run a security pipeline, but they don't want to call it a pipeline because it's not generated from the CI file, but it's still a pipeline. And there's a bunch of questions whether this should appear in the pipeline list, yes or no, and the data that they display, like there's no SHA, so it won't fit in the overview, and the details in the inner page of the jobs and security. Anyways, it's a lot of things that I have some knowledge, but I think Dimitri and Juan are the experts there. So I just wanted to raise this flag, and I already mentioned that she should get in touch with you folks, but yeah, just go ahead. And if you have any outstanding ideas and thoughts about it, reach out to Camelia. She needs our help. That was it.
How did you come up over that question? Like, did Camelia reach out to you in order to help, or there was some other?
she scheduled a call with me today, and then we were just chatting about it because she wanted like some perspective and to understand the environment's the pipeline's view, and know how do our personas, like in release management, they consume that information. I mentioned to her that it's going to be very different, but a lot of her prototypes, it's the pipeline view but in a different section of GitLab. And my initial idea was that it shouldn't be that different, right? If you're creating a new type of pipeline, just add that in the pipeline list and show it with a different label. For example, we have detached pipelines. We have a bunch of things in the UI that you can identify. But she has more questions related to the CI aspect of and the workflow. Like, do people go to the tags, to the tabs, security tab? How do they consume that information? And I think the guys, they also have, they can also be of help there. Because my personas is very specific, and I think in CI you have the similar use cases to her.
Thanks for the heads up, Hayana here. The reason why I was asking is I'm curious, like, how do we reach out to each other around this cross-stage topics? Yeah, I would also encourage Camilla just to like put it there in the UX Slack, so others also like, so we do more of this cross-functional, cross-stage questions in Slack. But yeah, definitely thanks for the heads up. Juan, you could, I'm sure you will follow up, and I will also.
Yeah, I mean, like her questions are. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have an answer for the first one. I do have an answer for the second one, which I can share here for everyone, which is why people go to the pipeline page. And usually it's because they are babysitting the pipeline, or they are like troubleshooting the pipeline, or they want to understand very specific things about the pipeline, structurally speaking. Otherwise, there's no reason to go to that page, because you can accomplish already everything from the MR. Even like going to the jobs, you can do that from the MR. But I think she raises a good point, which is many functionality is hidden on the pipeline page. So I don't think we have strong affordances or reasons to take people to the pipeline page. It happens to testing as well. Testing has a tab there. It actually has two tabs there.
Yeah.
And I don't think people find, I mean, right now what we're trying to do is make that easier for them to go from the MR widgets to those tabs. But since there's gonna be an OKR, if I'm not wrong, about improving the MR page, that's something else to have in mind.
Yeah, that's exactly like a similar case for us. So people would go to the pipeline unless there's a detail view, unless there's something wrong with the pipeline, right? And they need to debug that and see, or they go to the pipelines looking for the deployment, something like that. But in her case, it's so specific that, as from what she explained to me, is that the user, the persona, every quarter, it's going to run a security pipeline, or every milestone. So it's really like an ad hoc thing.
Right.
They want to schedule that pipeline. It's not a pipeline. They want to schedule that.
It's like that
thing.
job, yeah.
Yeah, but it's but there's no information in the CI file. It's really like from a form. Everything happens in the UI, and you select this is the target. I want to run in. I want it to be deployed to this environment. I want it to schedule on this date, and I want it to run these security jobs, whatever.
Got it. Yeah. Oh,
And
that's
then
an interesting one.
She wants to show it in a separate view, not the pipelines view, because it's not a pipeline, it's a security scan. But all the information that you're showing, it's in the pipeline format. It's the same UI, it's the same data. You just don't have the jobs, like, because there's no CI generating that. But I told her, I think you still have something technical that is the snapshot of your security scan. In our case, it's a tag, or it's a commit, or it's a merge request. I think they need to figure out what that is, so that they can decide how to show that. And
so basically what they want to do is show the result in the pipeline page. So you have it there for, that's interesting.
She has prototypes, so I would say reach out to her, because she presented it to me, and I'm not sure it's in the issues. Let me just double check. no, there's no prototypes and issues. So I think it's still a work in progress. That's why to reach out to me, maybe, yeah, I think some of the
Okay.
most.
No, this is
If you're
interesting.
reaching out, Juan, maybe a good idea to record that session as well, post it. Again, like the more visibility, the more noise we create around that. Like I just like this fact that we are discussing such a related work and then sharing it with each other.
Right. Yeah. All right. That makes perfect sense. I'll follow up with her.
Awesome.
So-
Thanks, Hannah, for that. Cool. Well, Lori left a message asking if anyone needs anything from her about the research. I think we can just leave the message back here or just reach out to her. I don't know, anyone has any questions around the user research topic?
I do have one, which I'm gonna follow up with her anyways. But I actually mentioned this to Nadia on our one-on-one this morning. But the question is very simple: is right now I'm running a category maturity scorecard, and the scenario, the job to be done that I'm evaluating can be accomplished in two ways. Like there's two different paths to accomplish that. I will say that there are potentially even three, but let's keep it at two, which is more reasonable. And I was curious because yesterday I had my first call, and the customer, he basically got it super easily through one of the user flows. He didn't get, I encouraged him to try like a different way to accomplish, I told him like, hey, perfect, you did it, that's perfect. Now I have a question for you. If you had to do it in a different way, not through that particular affordance, how will you do it? And then he tried and he failed, not miserably. He actually was pretty close to get it, but he for some visibility reason, he couldn't see like the button in that like finalizes the workflow. Yeah, so I was curious about that. I'll follow up with her, but I'm also kind of curious about what you guys think. Is it successful when they accomplish a workflow, even if it has like multiple ways of being accomplished?
For sure. For example, in the release management, when creating a release, you have one job to be done, right? I want to create my release. You can do that through the UI, or you can do that through the CLI. So this is what we're calling the different scenarios. And then I hope that makes sense because it's I'm trying to process the question. Is that we're really looking into what are the low-hanging fruits and which one of those scenarios we want to tackle first that would help us reach the next maturity level, or that will help reach more value for functionality. So for example, when we talk about creating a release through the API and managing the release, there is so many possibilities. Oh my God. Right now, that the UI is really the focus. So I think there will always be a different, especially with this technical and non-technical personas, you're always going to have different ways to accomplish the same tasks. So one job to be done, and then you break that down per persona, because
Right.
the job is persona, yeah, agnostic.
Listening to that, and I think that some of the, okay, maybe there is even more ways to accomplish the work that we have no even idea about. I feel like users can be sometimes so creative, and this is what I said to Juan. I think I think we of course have to check in with Lori here, but I think if a user was able to achieve his goal in one of the ways, that we can count that already as a good sign. Of course, we may look into why the others failed, but I guess it's the completion of the task is the main focus here. However,
Yeah.
we'll be curious what Lori would share.
I think, yeah, I think if you're successful, that's one thing we discovered. And if you're successful creating, for example, a release through the API, but you cannot do that from the, you can only do half the process through the UI, then yeah, it feels like a fail, right? Like we're delivering half the value for the functionality. I think it really depends on which persona you want to focus. For us, yeah, we want the persona that is non-technical, that needs the UI to succeed in their jobs. That's why in this case, this multiple scenarios, a job to be done. Yeah. In general, you shouldn't fail on any scenario, right? You should be able to accomplish your job, but no, it's a bit tricky. Where's Laurie? Need Laurie.
Yeah, let's come
Yeah.
back to the question. I think it's a good one. Interesting. Yeah, I guess there is a lot of depends, but yeah, in general, yeah, these are some of the thoughts. Yeah, let us know, Juan, if you will get an answer from Lori. It would be an interesting one because I'm sure it's such a common thing to have multiple ways of achieving the goal for the user.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll follow up with her, and yeah, I'm definitely very curious about these, because I'm sure that I'm not the only one who's gonna face this particular situation.
Yeah, if some other people already didn't face it. All right, well, we are at the end of the time almost, but yeah, I don't know if anyone has anything interesting to share or to paste here at least, or just do a little quick shout out in regards to books, tutorials, conferences, and stuff. I actually last week I attended my first ever 5-day remote conference for the design, around the design, and that was actually such a cool experience. And I placed one of the talks that really inspired me into the Figma channel. And let me just copy the URL. They've been kind of like talking about all the different ways, creative ways of using Figma for retrospectives, for everything like that. All of the unimaginable ways to use Figma. And I think actually it's sometimes it's a nice replacement even for mural boards that we are using and other tools. It's pretty cool one. It was also pretty fun talk. So I'll just drop it here. I also shared it in Figma channel.
That's awesome. Juan, have you started prototyping with the Figma already?
Not prototyping. I'm designing very heavily right now with Figma. I think I already abandoned completely Sketch, although I miss a lot of things from Sketch. But I haven't done prototypes yet, so I think that will be the next thing that I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I haven't started at all. I'm still because all my files are in Sketch. I'm like shit. Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
I love it. I love Figma. I actually switched myself like long time ago already, just because my Sketch license finished and I had the Figma one. So I was like, damn it, that's the sign. And I'm loving it right now. I feel like they've been doing a lot of good jobs lately about bringing the tool to the next level.
Awesome.
I'm really excited about that.
Cool deal.
All right. I guess that's it then. I won't hold anyone anymore. Thanks for a fun call. Enjoy the sun, whoever has it. And yeah, Orid, you made me jealous again about the Tel Aviv. So.
Well, talk to me in August when I'm dying of humidity.
It's about it, like outside, hiding with the air conditioning blasting. Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.